Hi guys, this is Oscar with the Lens Depot, and today I have Ikelite's newest underwater housing. It's called a dry lock port. If you've used our underwater housings before, or you've seen some of our other videos, it basically looks the same. It's a new system. Basically, it's a little wider. The opening here is a little bit bigger so it can accommodate some zoom lenses that their old systems couldn't accommodate, and some wider lenses that their old system couldn't accommodate. So this housing in particular I'm going to show you is for the 5D. It'll accommodate the new 5D Mark IV, the 5DS, the 5DSR, and the 5D3, along with a bunch of different lenses that our other housings couldn't accommodate. For example, it can now accommodate some zoom lenses, very popular 24-70 version 2. Another one, a 16-35 f4, a 16-35-2, and the newest 16-35-3, which I don't have here, plus a bunch of other lenses. Another nice thing is that, you know, with these zoom lenses, people want to use the underwater housings not just for going underwater, but for, you know, surface sports, you know, what do you call it, surfing and all sorts of stuff. Whereas before you were limited to, you know, prime lenses. So let's get started. So basically when you order this online from us, we rent just the housing itself. We're going to add a bunch of different ports, but you need to select the housing. And then you need to select a housing that is a dry lock housing from us. So a regular housing, we have a bunch of different kinds. I know it can be a little bit confusing, but only the dry lock housing can work with the dry lock port, basically. And on there you'll see a long list of all the lenses that it can accommodate. Now, most of those lenses we rent, some of those lenses we don't rent, but we do put them on there for customers that might have a lens already. Super important. If it's not on that list, it won't work, okay? Also, if you do go ahead and place an order, if you have any questions, just give us a call. Send us an email if you have any doubts as to what will work with what. But make a note in the special instructions. Hey guys, I've rented this and I need it set up for this and this lens. And what that means is we have to configure these gears to work with the lenses. There's a bunch of adapters and little things that we have to do to these to make them work with the housing. So it helps if you make a note on there. If you don't, we're going to call you anyway and ask you. That way we can prepare the correct gears for you. That way when we ship it to you, you're good to go. There's, you know, no questions asked, and or if you pick up at one of our locations, we have everything ready for you, and we can certainly go over it with you. But a few things, you know, the housing looks about the same. As you can see, it has one handle at the moment. We've decided that once you get all of these ports on here, all these extension tubes, it gets really heavy. We're going to add a second handle. It's just not in at the moment, but you know, by the time we post this video, we should have it in stock. So let's get started. You know, the housing in itself is no different than the other ones as far as, you know, taking the back off. You have 3 spring-loaded clips. You just have to be very careful when you release them so it doesn't pinch your fingers, especially the ones really close to the handles here. And then the top. If you've never rented or used a housing before, some things that you want to, you know, keep an eye out is for the seals. There's one on the back of the housing, and in a moment I'll show you on the extensions and the extension tubes that there's another seal. You always want to make sure that they're clean. If for whatever reason you take them off and they hit the ground, you want to rinse them off with a little bit of water. We do provide a little bit of lubricant, so you can just lubricate it. Just, you know, put it on the tips of your fingers and then just kind of rub it on there. You always want to make sure, obviously, that you put it back, both on the housings and on the extension tubes. Now, depending on what configuration, what lens you're going to be using, we will either provide you with the 8-inch dome by itself, okay, or one extension tube, or even 2 extension tubes, okay? So as you can see, I have 2 of the 3 that we use here. One's a little bit bigger than the other one. So Ikelite says it doesn't matter, you know, how you put them on. I'd like to tell clients to put the bigger, thicker one toward the housing itself first, just a little bit stronger, and then the other ones on top. But we'll get to that in a second. But basically, on the back of the housing here, as you open it up, you have your TTL module. It's not very long. You just have to be very careful when you're sliding the camera in to lock it in place. And by the way, as you probably know, if you've seen on the site, we do rent a DS1, which is it's a photography flash as well. So there's an adapter. Just pull this out, put it at the bottom of the camera, and make sure you tighten it as so. And then you'll slide the camera in on that bracket, slide the TTL in, put it face down, and then you want to put the back on it, make sure it's nice and tight. So once that's taken care of, you want to flip this over. We're going to give you this little handy tool. There's this cover you have to take off, and there's this ring that you have to unscrew. So basically just turn it. Let's see if I can do it here. And release it. So I'll just take that off real quick. And then you're going to put it off to the side. We're going to need it here in a second. And then just take this cover off, the one that says Ikelite, just put it off to the side. So, you know, if we had the camera in here now, you'd see the camera. Obviously take the cap off. Then what you want to do is set up the lens with the gear. So depending on the configuration, we're going to send you a gear so you can put the lens in. The teeth go toward the bottom. Okay, just remember that, because it has to catch with this lever here on the side so you can zoom the lens in or out, okay? Or if it's a lens that could be out of focus, then you can I mean manually focused, I mean then you can focus it. But remember, gears down. Depending on the lens, there's also a band, sort of like a rubber band, I guess, that would go around the lens. We would, you know, provide that, and then that would slide. It's got little teeth facing down. It would slide into these little brackets, I guess you want to call them, on the gear. So let's just say we had that all set up. So camera's in there, ready to go. You want to take the lens and you want to slide it into the actual gear itself, okay? And just kind of push it down. Just get it in there nice and snug. That way when you turn that lever, it actually turns the lens itself and zooms in and out. If it's a lens, it can be zoomed out. So once you have all this set up, you want to slide it all in here, okay? And then you'll see that the gears will catch. Loose, that's normal. Don't worry about that. Then you want to take this ring, okay? Face down, slide it all the way down. You're supposed to do this first and then slide the lens in. I think it's a little easier to put the gear on the lens and then put the lens in. The way Ikelite recommends is just doing this and then just go ahead and tighten it all the way around. If you do it my way, you just have to use, you know, one of the edges and just keep turning it until it's nice and tight. Make sure that it's nice and tight. Okay, so that's ready to go. So let's just say you rented a lens from us that needs 2 extension tubes and plus the dome. So we'll send you the extension tubes, and this is what they look like. They also have a seal. Make sure that the seal is there. Make sure that the seal is clean. Make sure it's lubricated. And then you'll notice these 3 little screws here. You want to back them out about halfway, okay? Make sure that no metal is protruding from there, because you might damage the actual port itself. And you want to slide it over the front of the port. Now, you'll notice on the port here, see if I can get it to the camera, there's a couple of indentations or, you know, holes, I guess you could say. There's 3 of them. That is where the screws need to be lined up. If they're not in those holes, again, you're going to be damaging the outside of the port, and it's not going to be making a good seal. So just make sure that when you're putting it on, that you just line them up and then just squeeze down. Some of them are going to be a little bit tighter than others, and then boom, that one's done. Then you want to tighten the screws all the way in, okay? As so. And then if you need to do another one, you do another one. Same thing. Make sure the seal is there. Make sure it's clean. Make sure it's lubricated. Line up the screws with the holes. Now you'll see, yep, it still has 3 holes. Same thing, put it in there, okay? Some of the smaller extension tubes, as you'll notice, will have the hole that I mentioned, and will have these other little holes. Make sure that everything gets lined up with these bigger holes. This is to relieve pressure when water gets under here, and so it can drain out. So remember, just these big ones. It'll make sense once you start putting it together. And then last but not least, you're going to put the dome. Same thing. The dome has 3 screws. Just make sure at that point that all your screws, they should be lined up, and then just put it on there, nice and snug. Make sure they're pulled out a little bit. Make sure you hand tighten everything. Now, once you do this, okay, let me put this one on here real quick. I'm going to show you something. Especially if you've never done this before, you're going to be a little nervous about putting your camera, your lens, or our camera and our lens into the housing, wondering whether or not you've done it right. So let me just slide this one in here real quick. So that's nice and tight. Then I'm going to tighten it up. Now, depending on how many extension tubes you have, or lack thereof, the further away they get from the port opening, the looser they're going to be. So I only have one here, so it might not be too bad. But let me see if I can get it to wiggle. There's a little bit of wiggle. If I would have added this other one, you would have definitely felt it move and wiggle, and you would have thought there's no way this is vacuumed and that this is waterproof. So for this new system, Ikelite has included a system that what you can do is you can vacuum the air out and make sure it's watertight before you take it into water. So as you can see on the side of the port here, there's going to be this little black plug, I guess you can say. There's a little silver button. You want to squeeze the button, okay? See if I can squeeze it when I'm backwards here. A second here. There it is. So toward the bottom, you want to just push on the silver button, and it's going to pop this guy out, okay? Then you're going to take this pump, this vacuum pump that we've sent you, and you want to just go ahead, you can turn it on its side. You want to plug it in, you're going to hear a click, like so, and you're ready to go. Now you want to pump this until you get to, they say anywhere from 5 to 10. We've tested it here at the office at 5, and that's enough. So basically you want to just start pumping this, okay? It's making a noise because I don't have the back on it. You want to get it back up to 5. It's going to take probably a minute or 2. And you want to just let it sit for 5 minutes. Come back in 5 minutes. If the gauge has not moved, then it's watertight. You don't have to worry about, testing it without a lens or testing it without a camera. She's good to go. Even if you had a little bit of that wobble that I mentioned with a couple of different extension tubes, that wobble is gone. So then that way you're ready to go. You want to release the pressure with this guy here. Release the pressure. Pop this guy out. Okay. Hit the little silver button. Pops out. Make sure you put the plug back in. And that's it. You're good to go. So if you have any questions, give us a call. Send us an email. It's a great system. I mean, it accommodates a bunch of stuff, which is really nice. But again, it can be a little complicated, a little bit daunting at first. Hopefully this video has helped a lot. And thanks again for watching.